box.
Thanks, Felicia. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a mindful making episode where we're going to be making bath bombs, and we are going to have some moments of Zen now in the making process, and then especially later when we actually use these bath bombs. So the thing that we're making today are going to be nice. These are great gifts. So you can wrap them up, put a little bit of ribbon on it, put it in a nice presentation kind of box, but we will be making these bath bombs which will fizzle and give a nice fragrance and a nice color into a bath. So thank you so much for joining us. Let me talk to you about some of the different materials that we're going to need. So we'll switch over. And the first material that you'll definitely want to grab is at Michael's, and it is this bath bomb base. So this kit is really nice because it comes with the two basic ingredients used for bath bombs. So the bath bombs we're going to be making have sodium bicarbonate and cornstarch blended together. And it also has a separate bag in here of citric acid. So the citric acid is what fizzles with the bath bomb and kind of dissolves into the water. And then that bicarbonate cornstarch blend is kind of what holds the fragrance, hold the colors, and kind of holds the whole bath bomb together. So this kit is great. It comes with about 51 ounces of the sodium bicarbonate and cornstarch blend. You can make that blend yourself from scratch, and there's lots of recipes online, but I love that this comes in this kit and is just ready to go. You don't have to do any extra chemistry or any extra mixing at home. It comes right here the way that you want it and the way that you need it. You're also going to want something to mold your bath bombs with. So I love these stainless steel bath bomb molds, and these are also in that same aisle. And then in order to personalize these bath bombs, you want to try and pick out different fragrances that you enjoy. So I love this eucalyptus mint. I think this is a really great fragrance. There's vanillas, there's lavenders, there's sandalwood. There's lots of different fragrances for you to try. And then you're also going to want some kind of colorant. So one thing I want to caution you about with the colorant and with the fragrance is that there are fragrances and colors that are used for candle making, and then there are fragrances and colors that are used for soap making and bath bombs. So it's very important that you find the coloring that goes for bath bombs. So we have a make market, and if it says on the package that it's for glycerin soaps, then it's safe for skin and it's been tested. So that would also be safe in the bath bomb form. If it is for candles, it is not guaranteed to be safe for skin. It could potentially dye the skin. So make sure that the colorant that you're using is safe for soaps. And if it's safe for soaps, then it's safe for bath bombs. Same thing with the fragrance. You want to make sure that the fragrance is also the right type of fragrance and that it's safe for soaps. And so that you know it's going to be safe for your skin and to be used in your bath. So I have some colors, I have a scent, I have a mold, I have my mix. And then the other things that you might want handy are going to be some measuring cups, some measuring spoons, something to stir with, and some kind of bowl or something to put the mixture into. And we're going to mix this up together, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to make these bath bombs. I also like to mark my spoon so I know this is not for food usage if I'm using this as a crafting product. So I like to just kind of keep that straight. So if you do have any questions, please put them into the chat and I'll be happy to answer them as best I can. And if you are crafting along with me, let me know. If you need me to slow down or repeat anything, I can. And if you're just here to watch and enjoy and maybe possibly craft later, thank you for coming. Welcome to you also. So this is a mindful making class. So we're really just going to enjoy the process and just kind of slow down and relax on this busy day and make something with our hands and make something really special that we can enjoy again later. So with the bath bomb mix, inside of the bath bomb mix comes with written directions. There are also written directions on what I'm about to tell you with these measurements on the back of the molds as well. So if you buy a bath bomb base or if you buy the molds, you will have these same directions that I'm going to be telling you about. And it's going to tell you the measurements of how much of each of these and in what order to put these ingredients together to make those beautiful bath bombs. So with this base, it comes with the two different powders. One of the powders is marked sodium bicarbonate and cornstarch, and the other one is marked citric acid. And with both of these, you kind of want to keep them sealed up, but also kind of massage them a bit to make sure that there aren't any clumps. You definitely want to keep this in some kind of waterproof something so that it doesn't get any clumps. And this is enough materials right here to be able to make almost a dozen bath bombs, probably at least 8, possibly up to 12, depending on the size of the bath bombs that you're making. So I have the sodium bicarbonate, and then the other one is going to be the citric acid. And like I said, the citric acid is what's going to give it the fizzle and what's going to turn it into the bath bomb portion in your bath. When it hits water, it will sizzle. So you do not want this bag to hit water until you're ready for that. So I'm going to be doing some measurements, and on the recipe for this, it tells you to use 4.25 ounces. So if you don't have a way to actually measure the ounces, you can do a little bit of converting. It's going to be a rough estimate because converting different powdered substances is always going to be a little different than a liquid conversion and things like that. But 4.25 ounces of the sodium bicarbonate is about a half cup and then an extra 1.5 teaspoons. So that's the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out a half cup of the sodium bicarbonate. I have my half cup measurement. Woo. And I have my mess contained because I know myself and I know that I'm going to do a little bit of spilling here and there. And I'm going to level that out to get my half cup. And I'm going to put it into a container, a styrofoam bowl, a plastic bowl, a metal container. Anything will work in order for that to be stirred up for this mixture. So I have 4.25 ounces. So 4 ounces is about a half cup. So that's what I just dumped into here. And then the 0.25 ounces is about 1.5 teaspoons. So when you're looking for your teaspoons, obviously make sure that you're using teaspoons and not tablespoons. So the TSP, and I want 1.5 teaspoons. So here's my 1 teaspoon. I'm going to dip in and grab some of that. I'm going to level that spoonful off. There we go. And then I also want a half teaspoon to give us that 1.5 teaspoon. So make sure that you're looking again and measuring correctly with your half teaspoon. And I'm going to measure that half teaspoon and go ahead and put that in as well. So far I have about 4.25 ounces, which is equivalent to about a half cup, and then also 1.5 teaspoons of the sodium bicarbonate mix. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add some fragrance. Now, a little bit of fragrance can go a long way, so keep that in mind. If you are especially susceptible to scent, if it bothers you, you do not want to put that much in, or if you know someone could potentially have an allergy or doesn't enjoy perfumes, you want to kind of keep it to a minimum. I'm going to use my eucalyptus scent because I absolutely love this one. And I'm going to put about 5 drops in. So when I unscrew this, I can just go ahead and put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can already smell it. And what you're going to notice in my mixture is you're going to notice that it clumps. So the most important thing with all the mixing is that you spread those clumps of moisture out so that as much of the powder can touch the clumps of moisture as possible, because you want that scent to be distributed throughout your mix, not just in those really fine clumps. So I'm kind of using the bottom of my spoon as I go, and I'm breaking up any of those moisture clumps from where I dropped the fragrance, and just making sure that it's a nice and even compound. So eucalyptus, it's a eucalyptus mint, to be precise, is the one that I'm using. There are lots of different types of that eucalyptus also. If you have more questions, or if I'm not seeing the questions, Felicia, feel free to shout them out. Thanks for joining us and letting me know. So I've mixed in 5 drops, and I am going to go ahead and mix in 5 more. I probably wouldn't do more than 10 because a little bit of this fragrance is going to go a long way. So now that I have a couple more of those clumps, you can kind of see some of those clumps in there. I'm going to continue to break them up with the bottom of my spoon and make as much of this mixture have that fragrance, be able to touch that fragrance in those drops I've already put into this mixture. So this is step 1. We added the 4.25 ounces of sodium bicarbonate mix, has some cornstarch and the sodium bicarbonate mixed in together. I added about 10 drops of fragrance, and now I'm going to add in some color. So here is one word of caution that I have learned from my own bath bomb making experience. Yellow bath bombs look cool, but when you drop them into your bathtub, it no longer is cool to have a yellow bath. So as cool as a yellow bath bomb looks, I highly suggest you not use yellow in your bath bombs. I'm going to stick with something like a purple, a seafoam green, something that's not going to be disturbing to see in my bath. And again, I'm using colors that are safe for soap. And so if I use this lime colorant, I'm only going to drop in 5 drops of this color at a time. So I'm going to drop in 5. And then I'm going to do the same kind of thing I did with the fragrance, where see where it's clumped. I'm going to make sure that I get as much of the powder to touch those spots, those clumps, so that I can distribute that color. Ooh, at what point and what technique would you use to ensure bath bombs float and spin? Wow. Well, I have not ventured down that path yet myself. So I don't know if I know how to make them spin on purpose, but I definitely know that these ones that we're making today, when they hit the water, they'll float for like a second, but they do usually go ahead and sink to the bottom. And then you just see all the fizzle and all the distribution of all of this mixture come out into the rest of your water. So it's the water that activates the bath bomb, and it's activating that citric acid. So you'll notice that with the 5 drops, I don't have a lot of color yet, and that's okay. I'm going to keep adding 5 at a time. And again, you don't want these bath bombs necessarily to be super, super bright. They are more of a kind of relaxed, muted tone. And you'll be surprised that when we add a little bit of water and add a little bit towards the end, they will become darker than you think that they are in the bowl. You can add in things that are already safe to be in soaps and are safe to be in baths. So if you have some eucalyptus leaves that are safe for bath, you can go ahead and do that too. Treats and trinkets, you can add those in just as long as they're all water safe and not going to harm anyone's body. But I love that idea. And right now today, we're doing kind of a basic bath bomb that's going to be using these round stainless steel molds. But I did bring for fun, there are other kinds of silicone molds that are used for soap. You can go ahead and use this for a bath bomb too. I would just leave it in the mold for about 24 hours. So these are also some soap making silicone molds that have these really cool geodes. So you can leave the mix in here. Because it's a bath bomb, it's a little bit fragile. So getting it back out of this mold, I think, could be challenging. But if you let it dry for 24 hours before you peel this mold off, I think you have a really good chance of having a geode-shaped bath bomb as well. I'm going to add 5 more. I saw something in the chat about an ombre color. And what I would do if you want to mix colors or make stripes or things like that, rather than trying to do it within the same mixture, I highly recommend for that you go ahead and make 2 different bowls of the two different colors. The powder won't necessarily mix together to become the same color. It will kind of stay the two separate colors. So you want to kind of do those each separate before you put them together to try and make a colorful bath bomb with more than one color. So I think I'm up to either 10 or 15 drops, and I am going to go all the way to about 25 or 30, just 5 drops at a time. And I know that this is taking some time to add this color, but I am just kind of laying back and enjoying the process too. I'm just watching this change color slowly and just enjoying what I'm doing, working with my hands and just trying to smooth out all of those clumps to get that color to be able to touch as many different parts of this mixture as I can. So if you see some of these color clumps, you want to break them up with the bottom of your spoon and keep moving all the powder around. Okay. And by adding this color, I'm also adding a little bit of mixture, a little bit of moisture to this mix, which is both helping keep that color in, and it's also what's going to eventually help me keep the mold together. So a substitute for citric acid, that's a great question. In this particular mix that we're working with today, the mix itself comes with the citric acid and with the sodium bicarbonate. So I don't know of one off the top of my head, but I know that there are lots of different bath bomb recipes. Some are probably safer and more tested than others. So because this comes as a kit that we sell in the store, someone has already kind of tested it to make sure that this is safe and this is okay for you to use on your skin. We do also sell bath butters or body butters. And body butters are very similar to this in the making. You're just adding colors and adding fragrances that are safe for skin. And then with that, you can put those together and make them into a nice little jar, put some ribbon on it, and make a really nice, beautiful present for someone. Or sell them, why not? I'm gonna do one last round of color. And I know that it's very light and hard for you to see, but I can tell that this is starting to get my lime green color to it. And I can see that coming as I'm mixing this up and continuing to break up the clumps and making sure that as much surface area as possible can touch those color pellets that are in here. So when I drop them in here, they kind of make clumps, and I'm continuing to break those clumps down. Now, if you've washed your hands and if you feel okay about that, you can also use your hands to mix this. And so if you're making them, especially for yourself, and you feel okay, you could use gloves also, but it is more than okay to go ahead and use your hands when mixing this as well. And it kind of gives you that extra mindful feeling of feeling the feeling of the sand going through your hands and just kind of really relaxing into this process also. So you can start to see this lime green is much different than the white that I originally started with. And by adding a little bit more water in this next step, you're going to see more of that green appear as well. So at this point, I have my sodium bicarbonate mix with cornstarch. I have my colors and I have my fragrance. And this is the part where I'm going to add water. So I have a bottle of water right here, and I'm going to add about a capful of water one at a time. And you can see that it's kind of puddled in here. And you can either use your hands or use your spoon and go ahead and mix that water in. And what we're looking for in this next portion of our bath bomb is for this mixture to become kind of like a kinetic sand or like a damp sand. You don't necessarily want it to be wet, but you do want it to have some moisture in it so that it can take the shape of the mold we're about to put it into. So far I've put in about 1 capful, pretty close to 1 teaspoon. You're not going to need a lot of water, but you might want to do a touch feel at some point to see if it's still pretty loose or if it's starting to compact and starting to connect. So I'm going to add another capful of water here.
Hey, Megan, quick
Yeah.
question. It wasn't asked in the chat, but just in case someone is wondering, would it be best to use either bottled water or some type of distilled water instead of tap water?
It won't really make a difference. So I just have this handy and I know where the water came from, so I feel good about its safety. But really, tap water is just fine. I just happen to have this next to me. Thanks for asking, though. So at this point, you can see the color is starting to appear a little bit more. And also you can kind of tell just by watching that this is starting to clump and this is starting to be able to be molded, which is what we're going to want for the next portion when we're putting it into our mold. So again, you can use your hands if they're clean, or you can use a spoon and kind of mix this together and enjoy that feeling. It is a really nice sensory feeling. And then we're going to go and put these into the stainless steel. So there's one more ingredient to bath bombs, and that's what I've been measuring before and talking about, which is the citric acid. Once the citric acid hits water, it will start to sizzle or it will start to bubble and have that chemical reaction. So if you get too much water at this point, if your sand is wet instead of just damp, then you will want to add a little bit more sodium bicarbonate. The last step is to add the citric acid. You cannot add water after the citric acid. So this is your last chance to get your mix as moist as you want it to be, because you can't add water after you add the citric acid. So this is the last step before we do that final piece of the bath bomb. And I know, and you can kind of, if you have one of your stainless steel molds nearby, you can kind of see that this is definitely going to fit that shape. And it is hard enough and moist enough to be able to take the shape of what I'm about to put it into. So I know that my mixture is pretty good. Someone in the chat asked about too much water in the mixture. If you accidentally have too much water, add another teaspoon or two of the sodium bicarbonate, but don't add the citric acid just yet. So you can tell, I think you can tell, that this is a lot greener than when it was even when I was adding the color before, because the water has really helped spread that color out amongst this mixture. And I like what's going on here, so I'm at the point where I'm going to add my citric acid. So the citric acid calls for 1.25 ounces, which is about 7 1/8 teaspoons. So I'm going to measure out 7 1/8 teaspoons, making sure I'm using teaspoons and not tablespoons. And the citric acid is in its own container. And you do want to make sure again that it doesn't get water because it will activate. And I'm going to do 7 1/8 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I'm going to find my 1/8 teaspoon and 7 1/8 teaspoons of the citric acid. If you get too much citric acid, it will be okay. It won't do anything necessarily bad. I think it's just if you have too much water, then your citric acid is going to activate before it even hits the bath, which is going to lose kind of the fun of the bath. And at this point, I'm just moving the citric acid around with the rest of the mixture. And you'll still notice that the texture of this is about the same as kinetic sand or a damp sand, but not quite a wet sand. There are 3 different sizes that come with the stainless steel bath bomb molds. So for those, there are these smaller ones, there's a medium size, and there's a larger one. The amount of mixture we made is perfect for one of the mediums with a little bit of extra. So I see in the chat, someone asked, when would you add a nice moisturizing lotion or oil like some bath bombs contain? And I would definitely do that. Instead of adding capfuls of water, you could add some of those lotions in the mixture when it's trying to get it to be a little bit damper. But don't add any kind of lotions or any kind of liquids after you've put the citric acid in, because that's going to mess up the chemical reaction. So at this point, we are ready for our molds, and I'm going to be using the medium-sized molds. You're going to take one of the sides and kind of fill it up like a giant ice cream scoop. And I'm going to take the other side and I'm going to fill it up. And you'll notice that I'm definitely leaving them overflowing on both sides on purpose. And I'm not necessarily packing them down. I'm just filling both sides up, both halves. And then you will put these together, and this is a fun process too. So squeezing those two halves together in order to create this bath bomb shape. And then you can unveil your beautiful bath bomb. So if you don't like the first round, you can tear it apart and try this process again. And if you don't even want to make bath bombs and you just need something to chill out, try this. This is fun. This is fun. This is relaxing. There's beautiful scents, beautiful colors, and it's really just a nice activity for an afternoon. So I'm going to fill both of these halves up one more time, overflowing. I'm going to match them together. And then if you need to, you can go back in and fill in. If you have a chunk or if you're missing something, you can kind of play around with it. You'll also notice that these molds are going to give you like a seam, because there's a seam where these come together. So when you take it out, you can gently kind of sand down that seam with your finger. Ooh, that's nice. Or if you want to try a smaller size bath bomb, you can try one of the smaller stainless steel molds. Get more than enough on both sides. You can pack it down if you want it to be super, super solid. You don't want to have any cracks or any air bubbles. But usually when you put those two pieces together and just kind of smooth down the seam, you'll see that we have a really nice bath bomb. I love this one. Once you get one that you like, I'm going to sand down that seam a little bit with my fingers. It's pretty fragile, but it's not completely crumbling in my hand. But you would put it to the side somewhere. You don't have to leave it in the mold, but if you want to, you can. I also suggest, especially when it's closer to Christmas time, we have these great Christmas ornaments that open up. These are absolutely fabulous to put a bath bomb into and give it to someone as a gift, and then have that ornament also. You can also put them into cellophane bags and then go ahead and put a little ribbon or something like that too. Put it into a box with some extra festive greenery or some extra crinkled paper. But this bath bomb, like I said, it's a little bit fragile now, but after it has dried for about 24 hours, they are very hard. They're very hard. And when they hit the water, that chemical reaction is going to happen and it's going to be able to come apart. So that was our first bath bomb. And you can see that I still have some extra leftover color of this lime green. So I could even put this lime green off to the side, and then I can make another bath bomb, and we can take those two colors and kind of put them together to make something else. So I am going to go through this process one more time. Someone's asking about the bags. And yes, I do recommend leaving them to dry for 24 hours before putting them in the bag, just so that when someone takes them out of the bag, they stay intact. Otherwise, it might kind of dry onto the bag, which could cause a little bit more commotion. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to put it off to the side. And I'm going to make another color and kind of combine these together. So if you missed the measurements the first time, they are in the directions with the bath bomb mix, and they are also available on the molds themselves. But I did a little bit of math and conversions. So they measure out in ounces, and I changed those into cups and teaspoons. So I'm going to go ahead and make one more with a different color, And I'm going to start out with the 4.25 ounces of sodium bicarbonate mix. And that 4.25 ounces is just about the same as a half a cup and 1.5 teaspoons. There we go. So a half cup first.
Hey, Megan, when you get a
Yes,
chance, can you show those measurements again in
I'd
case
love to
someone may want to
write them down.
screenshot it?
Sure. Yep. So the first measurement is the 4.25 ounces, which is about equivalent to a half cup and 1.5 teaspoons of the sodium bicarbonate mix. And all of these measurements are for the medium size bath bomb. And you saw that I had a little bit of extra after I made a medium size bath bomb. And then the other measurement is for the citric acid, which is the last step. And that's going to be 1.25 ounces, which is about 7 1/8. So what makes a bath bomb organic? Is it just the fragrance or the oil? Great question. Definitely not having anything. In order for something to be organic, there's lots of different ways, but I would think that it wouldn't be any natural, or it would not be unnatural colors or unnatural fragrances. So I would imagine for it to be organic, it would have to come from the plants themselves in order to make it. So the ones that we're making are not pure organic bath bombs at this point. This is just a really nice, friendly starter round. So I have the 1/2 cup, and then I also need 1.5 teaspoons of sodium bicarbonate. So I'm making sure that I'm using my teaspoons and not my tablespoons. So here's my teaspoon. 1 and 1/2. And after we have that, the next step is going to be to add fragrance, if you want fragrance. If you don't want fragrance, you do not have to do anything at this point. I'm going to add anywhere from 5 to 10 drops of fragrance. I am going to use my spoon. Use a different color or use a different spoon if you're using a different fragrance, just to keep those fragrances pure. I'm making sure to kind of scrape along the bottom so that I have as much surface area touching that fragrance as I can to get that fragrance throughout the entire bath bomb. And then I'm going to pick another color. And I think this time I'm going to go with this peach color. And these are all soap safe colorants. So they're tested for skin. I'm going to do 5 drops at a time. Take some time and mix them up. And then I'll do 5 more drops and continue all the way from 25 to 30 drops of color, depending on how much vibrancy you want in that color. And I'm trying to get the clumps of color spread out. And you can do this with a spoon, or you can do this with clean hands. Make sure you dry your hands afterwards so that you're not messing with the chemistry. I'm going to add 5 more drops of color at a time. And this color I'm using this time is a peach colorant. The powder will always be a lot lighter until you add that little bit of water. And that little bit of water is going to activate more of the color. So you don't need it to show up very bright in the powder yet. You can kind of wait and expect that to come when you have your water. So any of these little pellets of color that I'm finding or on the side, I'm just making sure that they're getting incorporated as much as they can into this mixture. And 5 drops at a time, all the way up to about 25. We have some other cool classes coming up this week. Tomorrow, I'll be teaching a hand knit bunny pillow. So if you've ever wanted to try some hand knitting projects, you can try with me tomorrow. Next week, we'll be doing some wreath making. So we're always just trying new crafts on Thursdays and Fridays. You're welcome to join me. kind of go on an adventure and try lots of different types of activities. I'm going to do one more round of color, and then I'm going to start adding my water. And the reason why you're not doing all 25 drops at once is because they do clump. So you want to take the time to mix them in and know if you even need any more color before you keep adding the color. It's hard to tell right off because they do clump towards the bottom, and you need to keep spreading those clumps around in order to get more of the mixture colored. Otherwise, you'll see these clumps in your bath bomb, clumps of color instead of color throughout your whole entire mix. Pink. 5 more and I'm good for this color. You'll see this color pop when I do the water on the next step. But I can definitely smell the difference. See the difference. I said smell because the eucalyptus is strong in here and smells absolutely amazing and relaxing. There you go. Okay. So at this point, someone was asking about lotions and other things that may have any moisture in them. Anything that has moisture should get added to the mix right now, because once the citric acid is in here, you don't want to add anything else. So I'm going to do a cap full of water, which is approximately a teaspoon, maybe a half teaspoon. Going to do 1 capful right now and mix that in, and you can already tell the color is changing into this beautiful peach. And the mixture is starting to come together. And we want that texture of like a damp sand. So I'm still breaking up clumps and breaking up any pellets of colors that may have clumped together to make sure that I have a nice, smooth, even color throughout my bath bomb mixture. And at this point, I think I need 1 more capful of water to make this work. You can check with your hands, or you can keep using a spoon to see if this is a nice, damp, but not too wet sand that's going to be able to come together in order to fit into a mold and stay together instead of crumbling apart. And look at how that color is changing. I'm liking what I see. And I did save some of the color from last time, so we can go ahead and try to put 2 different colors together on this one if we'd like. And at this point, we're going to be adding our citric acid. So I'm not going to add any more liquid into my mixture at this point, but I do feel like this is definitely going to be able to pack. I've tested it. It will fit into that mold and it will stay together. So this is a good amount of moisture so far. And the citric acid, you're adding 1.25 ounces, which is about 7 1/8 teaspoons. So 7 1/8 teaspoons. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/8. There we go. And I'm just going to use my spoon to mix that in. And then I'm going to be ready for the mold and the grand reveal. You can mix scents together. So if you want to make a vanilla lavender, you can mix 2 scents together. 2 colors are a little bit harder to mix together, but the scents can be kind of mixed and matched. So now that I have this, I can choose to use some of the other color as well. So I save this off to the side, and I can put this into one of the sides of my mold. trying to use up all of that extra. And then I can use this peach in the rest of it, kind of do a two-parter. Gonna put those together. Ooh. Uh-oh. And I'm using the smallest size, but because I had kind of left this green off to the side, I probably should have mixed it a little bit before I used it, because it was starting to dry. So it got stuck in the bottom of this mold. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it into the mold again. And then I'm gonna put this side in too. Do a little bit of peach on top of there to close that off. Oh, there we go. Let's see what happens this time. That green is really sticking in there today. So I think I can still save it by using my hand a little bit. It just is really sticking to the top of this. There we go. Woo. So I'm using my hands to kind of keep these two portions together. And then I am going to go ahead and kind of remold them. There we go. And now that this is you can kind of see this, like, it's got a green apple look for me. I think someone's asking to see the measurements again. I can hold those up for you. An immersion blender. I've never tried that, but I'm sure that that could work. And I'm just kind of messing with this in order to get it a nice ball shape, because it was these two parts. I'm struggling a little bit. See what else I can find. Maybe at this point I can try it in one of these molds instead with my two colors. And then what's nice about this one is that I'm going to leave it in this mold for 24 hours. So I went ahead and put it in here, and look at this egg shape. That could be cool if you're making something. So I obviously popped this out way too early, but it would give me a nice egg shape, which could be a really cool basket stuffer for Easter. I didn't even think of that. But if you do want to go ahead and leave this in this mold for 24 hours, it should dry really nicely, and you can peel that silicone back off in order to get your bath bomb. So one more question, after drying 24 hours, do they need to be sealed? No, they definitely don't need to be sealed, and they will definitely last for a couple of months, as long as there isn't too much moisture in the air or moisture where you're keeping them. So I like to keep them in a nice bag or in a nice box or in a nice jar as I can give them as gifts to other people. But that is the basics of bath bomb making. So I highly recommend these kits. I think they're really fun and really fast and easy. You can do them with a group, you can do them with friends, and you can just really enjoy getting your hands into this process and enjoying the beautiful scents and the beautiful colors. The fragrance drops I added were about 10, and the color is anywhere between 25 to 30. And instead of citric acid powder, can you use lemon juice? I have heard that. I think that's a natural bath bomb recipe. So yeah, check out some of those other recipes you might see online, but know that I don't know how vetted all of those recipes are. I do know that this mix that we have is going to be nice and safe because it has been tested before. So this is it for our bath bomb journey together. I am Megan Faye, and I hope that you had a really nice time. And please come back again on Thursdays and Fridays in March and craft with me. We'll see you later.